Hey everybody, welcome to the History of D&D Weekly for June 20th, 2020. I'm your host, DM Gallibond. Hey everybody, today on the History of D&D Weekly we are going to continue looking at our detailed deep dive into the classes in D&D. And we are going to look at the classic, essential, necessary bread and butter of any D&D campaign, and that is your fighter. Now, of course, I'm being facetious. You don't really absolutely positively need a fighter in a group, but the way they envisioned D&D and the original rules that we're looking at, it pretty much is if there's any class that's essential, it pretty much is the fighter. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at this. All right, fighter, as you might expect, has a prime requisite of strength, and we talked about prime requisites earlier in a previous episode. You gain a 5% bonus experience if you have a strength of 13 to 15, and 10% bonus experience if you have a strength of 16 or above. Hit dice, 1d8 per level, up to 9th level. 1d8 in original D&D, that was as good as it gets. It's the most hit points of any class, and the fighter, I think, was the only one that got it. Don't think anybody else rose to those lofty heights. Starting with 10th level, and that carries up to 9th level, and of course every level up to 9th you get to add your constitution bonus if you have one. Then starting at 10th level, you only get 2 hit points per level from 10th all the way up to 36th, and Constitution bonus does not apply to any of those levels. So your maximum level is 36. You can use any armor, any shields, any weapons. Then special abilities. There are lance attacks and set spear versus charge maneuvers, and there are other fighter combat options, and we will look at that a little bit later. So fighter is a human. Remember, these core classes that sound like classes, they can only be played by humans in the original rules. Fighter is a human whose main ability is fighting skill. Often have greater strength than other characters, usually hit opponents more often in combat and inflict more damage. So they protect their weaker friends and allies. Party made up of only fighters would probably survive most dungeons, even those where magic would be useful. Every group of explorers should have at least 1 or 2 fighters. This is the people who wrote the rules telling you, you better have some fighters in your group, or else your DM is going to kill you. In your group adventures, the fighters should stay in front and act as a front line in combat situation. There are 3 or more fighters in the party. One should stay in the back in case the character's party is approached from the rear by enemies. Battle itself, fighters have better chance at surviving physical damage since they have more hit points than most of the classes. Alright, you should be able to use a variety of weapons unless your conception of your fighter character limits him to one class of weapons. You should equip him with both hand-to-hand and melee and missile weapons. They didn't even call them range weapons back in the day. They call them missile weapons. Fighters can advance as high as 36 weapons. Rapid advances, both in combat ability and their amount of hit points, make them natural leaders in human settlements. Okay, now, here's where we start to get into some fun stuff. Now, you may recall from last week when we were looking at the fighter, and if you don't, last week when we were looking at the cleric, if you don't, we're going to zip back up there momentarily. We had the experience point table. Now, the fighter's experience point is very nice and even. 2,000, 4,000, 8,000, 6,000, 32, 64, 120, 240, 360, all the way up, and then it just keeps going and going and going and going and going and going all the way up until at 36th level it takes 3,480,000 experience points. Well, now how does that compare to the cleric? It should be the same, right? Wrong. 1,500 for second level. What? 1,500 for a second level cleric? 2,000 for a second level fighter. 1,500, 2,000. And then at 36th level, it's 2.9 million for the cleric. 36th level, it's 3.48 million. So at 2.9 million, you wouldn't even be a 32nd level fighter. So this is uh, this is one of the things that's kind of interesting about first edition. Is that all the classes level at a different rate. And there was no such thing. They didn't have any kind of concept of a milestone, as is very common in later editions of D&D, where your adventures, you reach a certain plot point. Okay, everybody's now second level. That didn't happen. It's like you had to meticulously dole out every experience point that was earned by fighting monsters or getting treasure or whatever it was. And boy howdy, you reach that level, and okay, and now this member of your party suddenly rises a level and the rest of the guys don't. And then this person rises, and this girl rises, and the rest of the people don't. And then that guy rises, and the rest of the people don't. And then this girl finally rises, and the rest of the people don't. And so you can eventually get some places where that difference of 1,500, 2,000. That's not even the biggest difference. You'll get a kick out of some of these later on when we get to some of the other classes. All right, so that's where we go now. Class details. Prime requisite, fighters, prime requisite is strength, 13 to 15, gain of 5. Okay, we already talked about that. 8-sided die. Okay, special abilities. Beginning fighters initially receive only a couple of special abilities and need no other special abilities to survive and prosper. Their great strength, hit points, strong armor, and many weapons make them a powerful character class without additional special abilities. At higher experience levels, though, they do receive some additional abilities. 2 special abilities they receive immediately are the Lance Attack Maneuver and the Set Spear versus Charge Maneuver. These maneuvers are described in Chapter 8, which we will look at in a few moments. At higher experience levels, some fighters receive specific special abilities, including fire combat options and other abilities. These are also described in Chapter 8. Okay, higher experience levels. A fighter who saves enough money can build himself a home, even a castle, before he reaches 9th level. However, his home has no official sanction, even if the castle of the character is not a ruler or a nobleman. However, when the fighter reaches name level, now we talked about this, how every class has every class gets every rose has a thorn, and every class gets a title. And then there's the name title, which is its name is a category, but it just sounds weird the way they write it. The name category of title comes at 9th level for all of them. The character is opening to his great ability and reputation, addressed as Lord if male or Lady if female. Status is within the community, even if it's not a formal title. It's for the DM to decide whether or not it's a formal title bestowed upon the fighter by the nation's rulers. So I'll have to decide whether the player has to decide whether the fighter will be a landowning fighter who will settle down and become a ruler in his own right and a lord of a region of land, or a traveling fighter uh, who can own homes but not rule land and has no special strong responsibilities to the nation's rulers. So landowning fighters, 2 ways a fighter to become a landowning fighter: independently or in field or to a greater ruler. So let's say that your fighter is in a fairly civilized part of the world. Maybe he's out on the edges of civilization. pushing back the boundaries and fighting the monster hordes. Well, by the time he gets to ninth level, he's probably got a reputation. He and his band of um, miscreant adventurers have probably gone around and slain goblins by the score, and you know, defeated a whole kingdom of orcs, and maybe even killed a small dragon. Uh, and so they probably have a great reputation, and maybe they've even done some things for the king or the count or the duke. So he is going to say, he or she, the fighter, is going to say, I want to have my, you know, 10,000 acres and be able to build a small keep there. And if they've proven themselves, then the king will say, "Let it be so," and will um, have a royal writ, and then he will get a title and will get land, and that will become hereditary, and he will become part of the nobility. And then, of course, when he builds his thing, then all those people that are in those lands um, owe fealty to him, and he in turn owes fealty to the um, count, who owes fealty to the duke, who owes fealty to the prince, who owes fealty to the king, or the queen. Whatever, and so they get that, and then this landowner, he gets to start collecting taxes. So he gets to do paperwork. And he gets to have an income because of taxes. Oh, but then of course he can't keep all of that, because then he owes taxes to his liege lord, and they owe taxes to their liege lord and whatnot. And then of course there's this whole thing where the king um, you know calls the shots for the whole kingdom. So if somebody bothers the king and the king decides that they have to go to war, then he's going to send the word out to his princes and his dukes and his counts and his uh, you know barons and our little fighter here. And the fighter has to say, all right, I need 50 of you guys, get your horses, get your stuff, you're heading off to the capital, because you're going to join the army, and you're gonna fight for the king. uh, and that may be what happens. All right, now, traveling fighters. If at ninth level a fighter does not decide to make a dominion for himself, chooses to become a traveling fighter. Oh, and then here's all the saving throws. And notice the saving throws are always different. Now, there's this thing here, normal man. A normal man is a fighter is the only class that is considered to have arisen from like a peasant. So a peasant, a 0-level peasant, is essentially a 0-level fighter. That's a normal man. And they should really have written this as normal human. Human. But, it was the 1970s, and they had no idea they had no idea that they were being sexist. So, sad, sad, sad. So anyway, 14, 15, 16, 17, 17 was what that was. Now, just by becoming a first level fighter, that drops in every one of those categories. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And then all the way up here, the only way you can, the only way you can fail a saving throw is to roll a 1. So it's it's pretty hard to fail a saving throw as a high level fighter. All right. So now these traveling fighters, they get some really interesting prestige classes, prestige class abilities. Um, these guys can become paladins. If you are a lawful traveling fighter, you can be a paladin if you meet the following requirements. And if you don't meet those requirements, you can become a knight, which is described below. So the fighter must swear fealty in an oath of service to a lawful clerical order to gain paladin status. Then the fighter must be of name level or greater, so ninth level or greater, to be accepted by the clerical order. Thereafter, the paladin may be summoned by the order's leaders at any time and must do as they command, as long as the service aids the powers of good. A paladin can detect evil, as per the cleric spell, as often as once per round, simply by concentrating. And they have a range to 120 feet. But they cannot use this ability and attack in the same round. So if the paladin's wisdom score is 13 or greater, they can cast cleric spells as if they were a cleric of 1/3 their actual experience level, or round down any fraction. So if you become a paladin at 9th level, you immediately gain 3rd level clerical spells. Now think about how powerful that makes this fighter. He has all of the abilities of a 9th level fighter, and he now gets to dump 3rd level clerical spells, or, cast spells as if he were a 3rd level cleric. I shouldn't say 3rd level clerical spells, that's a little misleading, but he can cast spells as if he was a 3rd level cleric. So then at 17th level, it would be a 5th level, because 17 is round divided by 3 is 5 and a fraction, so you get rid of the fraction, and he's just a 5th level clerical. Cast spells as though he's a 5th level cleric. So, they're never going to gain higher than a 12th level spells as high as a 12th level cleric, but still, that's insanely powerful for a fighter. Okay, so the fighter or the paladin learns how to meditate and cast spells from the clerics of the order. And the clerics, now this is for paladins. The clerics will refuse any offer of compensation or payment for this service. And paladins can also turn undead as if he was a cleric of 1/3 his actual experience level. So that 9th level paladin can not only cast spells like a 3rd level cleric, he can also turn undead like a 3rd level cleric. Paladin can only travel with a number of hirelings equal to or less than his clerical level. So a 9th level cleric cannot travel with more than 3 followers, 3 or fewer followers. And a paladin must assist anyone who asks for help, with 2 exceptions. Does not have to help evil characters or achieve evil goals. And if the paladin is on a mission for a higher authority, such as a quest, serving a duke, or etc., he can offer only a small amount of help, such as sheltering or advising the person in need of aid, along with an explanation for his refusal. I think that part is so funny. Oh, well, I really can't help you because the duke wants me to go do this. But he has to explain that as part of his reason for not helping. Okay. Assistance never involves donations of money or items, but only service for a short time. Now, knights, so if you're a neutral traveling fighter, or if you're a lawful or a chaotic traveling fighter, but you don't have the wisdom requirements, then you can become a knight. Lawful fighter, blah, blah, blah. To gain knighthood, fighter must swear fealty to a prince, king, emperor. In return, a ruler will declare the character a knight. That ruler then becomes the knight's liege. In most campaigns, knights are the common sort of traveling fighters. Following rules apply to knights. If summoned by his or her liege lord, the knight must report as quickly as possible and must serve as the liege orders. If the knight ever refuses to obey the liege or ever swears fealty to a different liege, the knight loses 3 levels of experience. Okay, so this is the punitive aspect of original D&D. You screw a day up, you lose the levels. Previous liege may even order the offender slain for his treachery. In addition, rumors and tales of the traitorous knight may haunt the character forever after. The character may find it difficult to find help in places where his reputation is known. And if the liege dies, the knight is free to choose another liege. Additional benefits, lands, money, etc., may be awarded to knights who swear fealty to the successor of a liege who dies. A knight may petition a liege for a peaceful end to his oath, however rarely granted. Knight would be banished at the least, and could be stripped of all possessions as well. So a knight may visit any castle of any territory and request sanctuary. And by customs of the land, the castle owner must give the knight a place to stay for up to 3 days, along with food and drink. So now this is like, they do make a note that this is based on the European Code of Chivalry, and if the DM's campaign is not based on that, then the DM is free to say, okay, yeah, not in this campaign, it doesn't work that way. And, you might have some other system that would work that way. So if a call to arms sounds, the liege says, oh, we need to go to war because there's this really bad, evil thing over there, then the knight must respond. This declaration can only be issued by the ruler of a large town, such as a mayor or a territory, archduke, or greater status, and the knight need only respond if it sounds in the area through which he is passing, or if it's called by his liege. When the call to arms sounds, the knight must immediately travel as fast as possible to the ruling castle of the one who made the call to arms and fight as ordered by the ruler, within the constraints of any knightly oaths he took in the course of a campaign. So now, yeah, and if the ruler made the call to arms orders him to kill innocents or helpless prisoners, the knight may choose to refuse, but he will make an enemy of that ruler. Okay. There are two notable exceptions to the custom of call to arms. The lands where the civilization is very different from medieval Europe. Yes, that might be different, blah, blah, blah. Or if the knight was in a territory that declared itself hostile to the knight's liege, the knight need not respond, because obviously he wouldn't, if you serve Wally the White, and you are, or if you're serving Wally the Wise King, and you happen to be traveling through the lands of Freddy the Fool, and Freddy the Fool says, Wally the Wise, I don't like that guy. I'm going to declare war on Wally the Wise. Call to arms, call to arms. Well, if you are a knight in service to Wally the Wise, yeah, you don't need to answer that call because you don't need to take up arms against your own liege lord. All right. Avengers. This is yet a third, I like to call it prestige class. I mean, prestige classes were not called prestige classes until like second or third edition of D&D, but these really feel like prestige classes. So a chaotic traveling fighter may become an Avenger if he meets the following requirements. Otherwise, a chaotic traveler may also become a knight. So the fighter must make an alliance with a chaotic clerical order. This is not swearing an oath of fealty, but a loose agreement of loyalty and support. The order may decline the offer. The order accepts the order's leaders may summon the Avenger at any time, and he must do as they command. If he disobeys them, he loses all special abilities and benefits of the Avenger. Even then, the fighter may regain Avenger status by negotiating with a different order. So, an Avenger can detect evil as a clerical spell up to once per round simply by concentrating. Now, notice, we said this before, that original D&D was so poor. How poor were they? They were so poor they could only afford 3 alignments. They had lawful, they had neutral, they had chaotic. They did not have the axis of good and evil. So, even a chaotic fighter in service to a chaotic clerical order gets detect evil because everybody, the rule makers, when they were sitting down to write this game, everybody's going to want to play the hero. Nobody's going to want to play the bad guy. Everybody's going to want to be the hero. Right? So there was no, they didn't have any concept of how somebody would play an evil character until they got several editions into it. It was such an innocent time. And that's what makes it so funny that the idiot grown-ups in the 70s and 80s were pitching hissy fits about, oh my god, D&D is so horrible. Yeah, all right, idiots. All right. So if the Adventurer's Wisdom is 13 or greater, the Adventurer can learn to cast cleric spells as if he were a cleric of 1/3 his actual experience level. Round all the fractions down. Therefore, the 12th to 14th level Adventurer casts spells as a 4th level cleric. If Wisdom is 12 or less, the fighter can still be an Avenger, but cannot cast spells. Now, here's an interesting difference between the Paladin and the Avenger. The Avenger learns how to meditate and cast spells from the clerics of the order, but at a price. Now, remember how they said the Paladin, the lawful orders, they will not accept any payment to teach the Paladin how to pray. Minimum of 10,000 gold pieces per clerical spell level gained is recommended. So, if you are per clerical spell level. So if you're a 9th level Avenger, you get 1st level and 2nd level clerical spells because you cast spells as a 3rd level cleric. So it'll cost you 20,000 gold, please, to get your training as an Avenger. So Avenger may turn undead as if you were a cleric 1/3 actual experience level, but an important difference. If the result is turn or destroy, the Avenger may choose to control them instead. Control is chosen, it lasts for 1 turn, 10 minutes, per level of the Avenger. Thus, a 17th level Avenger could control him for 17 turns, or 170 minutes, or nearly 3 hours. Undead, thus control, behave as if charmed, obeying the Avenger as if they were friends. However, the undead are turned or destroyed by a cleric during the duration of the control. The control is dispelled immediately and cannot be renewed. The duration of the control ends without incident. The undead will flee as if they are turned. So that's nice. It's not like you control a bunch of zombies for 3 hours and then they're gonna eat you in the middle of the night. It's like you control a bunch of zombies for 3 hours and then they're like, oh crap, run away from that guy. Avenger may not have human or demi-human hirelings. Okay, so cannot have any hirelings. However, the Avenger may try to persuade monsters of chaotic alignment to become his hirelings. Now, this is really freaking hilarious. If a chaotic creature is not immediately hostile, the Avenger may offer food or treasure, indicating through word or gestures friendship. If this fails, threats or combat resulting in surrender may accomplish nearly the same result. So, this guy, he can have goblins as retainers, which is goblins or orcs as retainers. So this is pretty funny. This, I love some of the creativity and imagination they had back in these early days. Okay. Backlash rotation of creature's reaction roll indicates friendship. Creature persuaded to follow and obey the Avenger. Effect lasts for a duration identical to the charm magic user spell. Once it ends, it cannot be renewed. The Avenger may have the number of chaotic monster hirelings that his charisma score allows. For once he loses one, he may try to persuade another. Avenger may visit any castle, ruin, or dungeon known to be ruled by an intelligent, chaotic monster or character, and using his alignment tongue demand sanctuary. An Avenger may pretend to be a knight and request sanctuary in other rulers. If he deceives the ruler and is not tripped up by some alignment revealing magic, the ruler will provide him with normal sanctuary. Okay, so you get prestige classes as a fighter, which is pretty cool. All right, now let's go to combat maneuvers. We talked a little bit about that and we said we would get back to it later. So, in the missile combat, magic, and hand-to-hand combat phases. Wait, combat phases? Yes, combat phases. Combat sequence checklist. Okay, we're going to talk about this later in a later episode, but just introduce this to you. Combat was really, really, really messed up back then. Each character and each monster did not roll initiative. Each side rolled initiative. One player rolled initiative for the party, and the DM rolled initiative for the monsters. And then whoever won the initiative, everybody on their side goes first. And then everybody on their side goes. That's the standard. They did eventually come up with the idea before the end of um, original D&D. They did come up with a variant rule. Oh, well, I guess you could have everybody roll initiative, but it was still only a D6 initiative. So it was a very flat initiative curve with a lot of creatures going at the same time. And then that basically was like, well, there's 3 of us over here that have the same initiative roll, so which one of us is going to go first? Yeah, I think the D20 initiative was much better because it spreads the curve out a little bit more. And then if you have the D20 plus the dexterity tiebreaker, that breaks it out even more. All right, so each side rolls 1d6 to determine initiative. First side goes first. Side that won the initiative acts first. So you're supposed to check morale. We'll talk about that later. Then you're supposed to move. And notice that you only get to move at a certain time. If you skip your movement, you don't get to move. Then you get to do missile combat. So all the missile and thrown weapons make their attacks. Then after missile combat is magic. So any spellcasters make their spells. Cannot be at the same time as missile combat. It has to be after missile combat. Then there's the hand-to-hand combat. Then the second side goes, and they repeat those 5 sub-steps. Then there's special results. All right, so all right, so we're getting back to combat maneuvers, and that happens in the missile, combat, magic, and hand-to-hand combat phases. A character can only perform one of the maneuvers per round unless he has multiple attacks option. And so you can throw. Use any weapon that is a thrown weapon. Daggers and hand axes. Successful hit will do damage listed for the weapon. Character gets dexterity and magic bonuses to the attack roll. Strength and magic bonuses to any damage he inflicts. Targets must be in range. Then fire. A character uses any missile fire weapon, so bows, crossbows, slings, in combat. Successful hit with D damage listed for the character gets dexterity bonus to attack roll. Targets must be in range of the weapon. Now, notice they don't get any bonus from the damage roll. All right. So then you cast spells. The character casts a spell from memory or from a scroll. Monster attacking with a magical power that doesn't qualify as a ranged damage attack, such as a vampire's charm, will use this maneuver in combat. So that happens on the cast spell phase. Use magic item. Character with a non-weapon magical item. Use it with this maneuver. This maneuver is for most non-magical weapons. Potions, wands, staves, wands, miscellaneous, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now there's all of these different combat maneuvers. Throw, fire, cast spell, use magical item, attack, fighting, withdraw, retreat, lance attacks, that's spear versus charge, multiple attacks, smash, parry, or disarm. And it tells you when you perform that, either in the missile phase, the magic phase, or the hand-to-hand phase. And then it says who can perform it. So all characters can do these. But fighters and dwarves and elves are the only ones that can use a lance attack. Fighters, demi-humans, and mystics are the only ones that can do a set spear versus charge. And then special. So you have multiple attacks, smash, parry, and disarm. Those are the fighter combat options. So attack, character attacks with any hand-to-hand weapon. Fighting withdraw. A character can only perform this maneuver when he begins the combat round in hand-to-hand combat with an enemy. With this maneuver, the character backs away from his enemy at a rate of 5 feet per round. He makes no attack unless his enemies follow him later in the same combat round on the enemy's own movement phase. If they do, he can make his attack at the end of the enemy's movement phase before the enemy begin their own attacks. Okay, you see how complicated this is getting? It's kind of like the reverse of opportunity attacks. Okay, I'm going to do a fighting withdrawal. I back away. My enemy comes forward to me. Well, as soon as they come forward to me and get in range, hey, then I get to attack them uh, instead of the opportunity attack. Hey, that guy's beating me up. I'm going to run away. So when I turn around to run away, he gets to attack me. All right, retreat. Character can only perform this maneuver when he begins his combat round hand-to-hand. Retreat. Enemy runs away at greater than half his encounter speed, up to his full encounter speed. Forfeits the armor class bonus to his shield. Any enemy attacking him later in the combat round, that is, either enemy followed or during the enemy's movement phase, receives a +2 attack roll bonus this round. Same +2 that characters normally get for attacking from behind. Oh, attacking from behind. Yes, there is facing in original D&D. Lance attack. If characters on a riding steed, such as a horse, is using a lance, he can perform the lance attack. This mount runs, flies, swims for 20 yards or more towards the fighter's target. Character gets a strength and magic adjustments to the attack roll and damage with the lance attack maneuver. The lance, if it hits, will inflict double damage with a successful hit. Roll the damage for the lance, multiply the results by 2, then apply all the appropriate bonuses. Without enough room for the charge, if the mount moves less than 20 yards or is stationary, the lance does normal damage only. Alright, so fighters, dwarves, and elves can use the lance attack, but no other character class can do so. Wah wah. Character has multiple attack maneuver. He may choose lance attack for any attack he makes in a round. Alright, set spear versus charge. Character on foot carrying a spear, pike. Okay. When you set versus charge, you hold the weapon firm, braced against the ground and towards the onrushing enemy. Character gets strength and magic adjustments to attack and damage rolls. As the character attack hits, he inflicts double damage on his target, adding damage adjustments after doubling. So they must declare a set spear versus charge before they're in hand-to-hand combat phase, with a creature charging toward him. So, for example, if the character's party wins initiative in the round and the character suspects the monster will charge, he can declare his set spear versus charge maneuver. Likewise, the character might see a group of charging monsters several rounds before they arrive, set their spears against the charge one or more rounds ahead of time. Normally, the attack makes his attack roll on the monster's movement phase when the monster first moves within range of the weapon. Okay. If his attack hits and kills the monster cannot hurt him in return. Alright, so multiple attacks. Fighter combat option. First available at 12th level to human fighters. Okay. Think about 5th level. In original D&D, fighters had to wait till 12th level to get a second attack. Okay, so don't be whining that it takes you till 5th level to get one in 5e. You're just an entitled little spoiled snot-nosed brat. Back in my day, we had to wait till 12th level to get a second attack. In melee combat, the fighter can hit his opponent with attack roll of 2. He can make 2 attacks per round. And at level 24, 3 attacks per round. And at level 36, 4 attacks per round. Each attack can be a throw, attack, lance, or disarm. Character can mix and match his maneuvers. For instance, a character with 3 attacks could perform an attack, disarm an attack, and throw 3 knives instead of 1. Or throw 3 knives instead of 1. Okay. Smash. Hulk Smash. This fighter combat option maneuver first available at 9th level to fighters and mystics and other experience point totals to demi-humans. Yes, okay. That'll come up later on when we get to those classes. Hand-to-hand maneuver. Character automatically loses initiative, takes a -5 penalty attack roll. Still gets strength and magic adjustments to the attack roll. If it hits, character adds his strength bonus, magic bonus, and his entire strength score to the weapon's normal damage. Okay, so, for example, 17th, a strength 17 fighter, +2 to attack and damage, using a sword +2, another +2 to attack, and 1d8 +2 to damage, would perform a smash this way. rolls with a net penalty of -1, so +2 and +2 is +4 -5, -1. If he hits, he rolls 1d8 plus 21. Uh, and that 21 is 17 +2 for damage. So you give up a little bit on the attack roll, but you get an incredible bonus on the damage roll. Now that kind of echoes in later editions. They did similar things, but it's certain classes that get to, I think they get to take a -5 on their attack roll in order to get something like a +10 on a damage roll or something like that. Parry is fighter combat option maneuver first available at 9th levels to fighters and mystics. Other experience point totals of demi-humans, blah, 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 blah. Okay, with this maneuver, the fighter does not make any attack rolls. Instead, he blocks incoming attacks the entire combat round. All enemies attacking him suffer a -4 penalty to hit him with melee and thrown, but not missile weapons. So, yeah, I've got this big shield. It'll let me block a sword. It'll let me block a thrown dagger. But, oh, that arrow over there, no. Apparently the shield can't be used to block that. Whatever. All right, disarm, fighter combat, option maneuver. And fighter gets normal strength and magic attack roll. If he hits, he inflicts no damage. Instead, victim rolls a 1d20 minus any dexterity bonuses plus his attacker's dexterity bonuses. The final roll is greater than the victim's dexterity. The victim drops his weapon. Okay. This requires an example. Sir Hodgier is fighting a warrior whom he intends to take alive. Warrior's AC 0 has a dexterity of 17. Sir Hodgier is 20th level with the bonuses from a strength of 16 and a +2 sword. Hodgier has a dexterity of 12. Hodgier needs to roll a 7 to hit AC 0. So he rolls a 6 but adds his bonuses from strength and sword to get a 10. He is hit. Now the victim rolls a 1d20. Rolls a 15. Subtracts his own dexterity bonus, +1, so that's a 14, for a result of 14. Sir Hodgier, with dexterity of 12, has no dexterity or bonus, so the final result is 14, which is more than the victim's dexterity of 13. So the disarm attempt has succeeded. So that penalizes the defender for rolling high. I'm just saying. All right. Kind of strange. Once disarmed, victim may either switch weapons, suffering a loss of initiative for the next round, or may try to retrieve the weapon. Retrieving a weapon, a victim must retreat to grab a dropped weapon. All right, so then there's attack rolls. We'll get it when we get into combat. We'll talk about that later. So that is the fighter in a nutshell. And let me just see if there's any kind of okay. Okay, there's rules for wrestling, all kinds of stuff. Okay, and there's even pins and all kinds of things. Yeah, okay. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it. All right, that is our look at the fighter. Yes, that's a long look at the fighter. But there's a lot to know about the fighter in this edition of the game. So, let me go back and we will recap and summarize. Okay, recap and summarize for me, please. Recap and summarize right there. Okay, so only humans can be fighters in this edition. Fighters can ascend to level 36. Lawful traveling fighter can become a paladin at level 9. Chaotic traveling fighter can become an avenger at level 9. A neutral traveling fighter or a fighter of another alignment that doesn't have the qualifications to become a paladin or avenger can become a knight. Paladins and Avengers gain clerical abilities at 1/3 their fighter level. Fighters may use any armor and shield and any weapons. Fighters gain special attack maneuvers at high levels. Fighters gain 1d8 hit points per level up to level 9, plus their con bonus. Fighters gain 2 hit points per level starting at level 10. And fighters can gain prestige classes at level 9. And they can gain some clerical abilities. Adventuring fighters make a choice to be landowners or travelers at level 9. Landowners build a stronghold, become a noble authority, and lands they hold. Landowning fighters can collect taxes from the people who live in their lands, but they are responsible for the well-being of those people, and they have a responsibility to their liege lord. Traveling fighters do not have a responsibility to their liege lord. Then traveling fighters who become knights can gain hospitality privilege, but they are also on call to defend the lands of their liege lord. All right, so that's it for a look at the fighter. Fighters actually, compared to other classes, fighters have a lot of options in original D&D. Now, it may not seem like they get a lot of options compared to later editions of the game, but comparatively speaking, they get a lot of options. But at low level, they are without a doubt the most powerful class in the game. But I submit to you that they are not the most powerful class in original D&D at higher levels. We will have that discussion in a future episode. All right. I have been DM Gallibond. This has been the History of D&D Weekly. Hope you enjoyed our discussion of the fighter. If you like what we're doing here on this channel, please hit the subscribe button down below. If you click the bell, that will let you know anytime we add new content to this channel. Appreciate you so much for stopping by and watching. Hope you will watch our other offerings here on the channel throughout the week, and hope we will see you back here next time on the History of D&D Weekly next week. Take care, everybody. Good night. Farewell.